The greatest of all illusions is thinking we're awake. We wake up every morning and go about our routines believing that we are in control. We make decisions, choices, and goals. But what if it's all just part of a big play? What if your own identity, your desires, and your beliefs aren't really yours, but just reflections of an invisible script that you've never questioned? You think for yourself, but in reality, you repeat it. You think you choose, but in reality, you obey. Worst of all, you believe you are free. Here's the truth. Your life is an illusion. From the moment you were born, an entire system began to shape your mind. They gave you a name, a culture, a religion, a purpose. They told you what was acceptable and what wasn't. They created a script, and you simply got on stage and started acting. And that's the cruelest trick of all. The system doesn't have to force you to do anything. It just gives you the illusion that you're free. Krishnamurti was one of the few to see through this farce. He said that the life we live is nothing more than a theater, a shadow play where everyone plays a role without realizing that they have never written their own story. But if everything is an illusion, there is a question that few dare to ask. Is there anything that is real? Now look around you. The world continues to spin. People follow their routines, chasing money, status, and approval, as if it were all natural, as if there was nothing wrong with it. But what if we're all asleep inside this fabricated reality? If this question bothers you, congratulations. It means that a crack has begun to appear in your perception, and now you have a choice. Continue living on autopilot, or go through the door to see what lies beyond this illusion. Because from now on, there's no way you can look at the world in the same way. Welcome to the Awakening. Imagine that, from the moment you were born, a story had already been written for you. Your name, your culture, your religion, your values, your beliefs, everything was handed to you as if it were natural, as if there was no other option. You didn't realize it, but your life was scripted before you were even aware of it. Now think, if you've been taught since childhood to follow this script without question, how can you be sure that you're really in control? What you believe to be your personality may just be a series of automatic responses programmed by society. From an early age, you were taught what is right and what is wrong, what is normal and what is strange. When you tried to break out of this script, whether by questioning a rule, rejecting a tradition, or expressing a desire that didn't fit the standards, you were punished, rejected, or corrected. And so, without realizing it, you learned to play the role you were expected to play. Krishnamurti saw life as a great theater. For him, people don't live, they just act. The system trains us to follow predetermined roles: the good citizen, the honest worker, the obedient student, the responsible father, the devoted mother. From an early age, we are trained to believe that following these rules is the only way forward. But is it? The most sophisticated part of this theater is that it doesn't impose visible chains. It gives you the illusion that you have a choice. You can choose your profession, but within a limited set of options that have been presented to you. You can choose what to wear, but always within social trends and standards. You can choose your beliefs, but always within the spectrum of ideologies that existed before you. What happens if you try to go off script? If you decide not to follow the logic of financial success? If you reject the idea of a traditional career? If you challenge values that everyone accepts without question? The system has a ready-made answer for each of these questions. You'll be called irresponsible, strange, radical. Society doesn't punish those who follow the game. It punishes those who dare to break away from it. But there's something even deeper. The system doesn't just want you to follow the script. It wants you to believe that this script is reality. The great trick of this illusion is that it doesn't feel like an illusion. If you were trapped inside a cell, you would quickly realize your imprisonment. But what if the cell was invisible? What if, instead of bars, it's built with ideas, concepts, and narratives that you've never stopped to question? The illusion is so powerful that even when you start to see it, your mind tries to resist. After all, accepting that everything you believe to be true could be a lie is frightening. Have you ever wondered why so many people follow life patterns that clearly don't make them happy? Why do they insist on careers they hate, relationships that suffocate them, beliefs that no longer make sense to them? Because the fear of the unknown is greater than the desire to be free. Krishnamurti said that the greatest prison for human beings is not physical chains, but mental chains. And what happens to those who begin to see this truth? They are seen as a threat. If you question too much, people around you start to look at you differently. If you say you don't believe what everyone else believes, they start to avoid you. If you try to go off script, you'll be ridiculed, discredited, and, in some cases, even attacked. Society doesn't need to stop anyone from thinking. It just needs to make questioning seem wrong. And that's why most people prefer to remain asleep inside the illusion, because seeing the truth comes at too high a price. But there is an unavoidable question. If everything you believe yourself to be has been imposed on you, then who are you really? And that's exactly what we're going to explore now. Wake up, work, pay bills, sleep, and repeat it all over again the next day. Life goes by like this, and one day you realize that time has slipped away. Dreams were postponed. Opportunities went unnoticed. This happens because no one ever taught you how to see the game of life the right way. But there is another path. If you want to reach the next level, you need to access new knowledge. And that's exactly what you'll find in the White Rabbit Codes. This book will open your eyes to what is really happening. You'll understand why you keep getting stuck in the same cycles, learn how to escape autopilot, and start seeing the opportunities that were always there. And finally, you'll make decisions that truly lead to the life you've always wanted. If you feel ready for this change, the link is in the pinned comment. You'll be surprised at how simple it can be to increase your prosperity. Success is a decision. The choice is yours. From the day you were born, you were given a name, a nationality, a culture, a religion. You've been taught what's right and what's wrong, what's beautiful and what's ugly, what's success and what's failure. But stop and think, who would you be if none of this had been imposed on you? We believe that our identity is something unique, formed by our choices and experiences. But what if, in fact, everything you consider yourself to be is just a set of beliefs programmed into you before you could even question them? The philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer said that man can do what he wants, but he cannot want what he wants. In other words, you can decide between one path or another, but you have never questioned why you want one and not the other. This means that what you call I may not really be yours. Krishnamurti warned about this illusion of identity. He said that the human mind is like a mirror that reflects everything around it, but never realizes that the reflections are not its true essence. What you believe to be your personality may just be the result of the culture you've been brought up in. The fear you feel may have been passed down from your family. Your desires may just be a repetition of what society has taught you to want. Your worldview may be a reflection of the people you've lived with. Now think, if all this has been placed in you, who are you without these influences? Imagine a baby born without any external influences. It doesn't know that it's Brazilian, French, or Indian. It has no religion. It has no defined moral values. It doesn't know what money, status, or social approval are. It just exists, free of any concept. But little by little, this baby begins to be shaped. It receives a name. It learns a language. It learns what to believe and what to reject. It learns to be proud of certain things and ashamed of others. And when it finally grows up, it believes that all these ideas are its own. The human mind can't stand emptiness. To avoid the anguish of not knowing who we are, we cling to labels and ready-made identities. Have you ever noticed how people live to define themselves? I'm a lawyer. I'm a Christian. I'm conservative. I'm progressive. I'm shy. I'm outgoing. These definitions create a sense of security. But the problem is that by clinging to a fixed identity, you also imprison yourself within it. How many times have you heard someone say, "That's who I am, there's no changing it"? But does that person really know themselves? Or do they just repeat what they've learned to be? Krishnamurti said that true freedom begins when we realize that we are nothing like what we think we are. When we stop clinging to definitions and start questioning every part of our identity. When we finally accept that everything we believe to be solid may just be an illusion carefully constructed over the years. But if our identity isn't real, if everything we believe ourselves to be could just be a set of mental programmings, then what really drives us? What makes us follow certain paths and reject others? Ever since you were born, you've been taught to desire the toy you wanted as a child, your parents' approval, good grades at school, then the first cell phone, the latest clothes, the respected university, the dream job. There's always something to achieve. There's always a next step. But have you ever noticed how, no matter how much you achieve, it's never enough? Society makes us believe that happiness is just around the corner, in the next achievement. If you work a little harder, if you earn a little more, if you get that promotion, if you find that ideal partner, then you'll finally be happy. But as soon as you achieve what you wanted, an emptiness appears, and soon a new desire takes its place. Have you ever stopped to wonder why this happens? Arthur Schopenhauer said that human life swings like a pendulum between pain and boredom. When we want something and don't get it, we suffer. When we get it, the pleasure is short-lived, and then comes boredom, which makes us long for something new. It's an endless cycle. But what if I told you that the problem isn't the desire itself, but the fact that the desires that drive your life may not really be yours? Krishnamurti believed that the greatest trap of the human mind is to confuse desire with freedom. He said that we spend our whole lives chasing after things without realizing that we weren't the ones who chose to desire them. From an early age, we were conditioned to want what everyone else wants: money, status, recognition. But are these desires genuine? Think about it. What do you really want? Now dig deeper. Why do you want it? If you want a luxury car, is it because you really like it, or because you've learned that having such a car means success? If you want to be rich, is it because wealth will bring you something essential, or because you associate money with the idea of happiness? If you're looking for a relationship, is it because you found someone who completes you, or because you're afraid of being alone? Desire in itself is not a problem. The problem is desiring without realizing that perhaps this desire has been implanted in you. The world is full of people who have spent their lives chasing something, believing that when they finally get there, they will find fulfillment. But what happens when they do? The successful businessman who has everything money can buy, but feels an emptiness he can't explain. The famous actor, adored by millions, who feels alone and lost. The couple who always dreamed of getting married, but after the wedding, realized that the promised happiness never arrived. Krishnamurti said that humanity's real problem is not suffering, but the illusion that something external can fill it. We spend our whole lives trying to fill a hole inside us, without realizing that the hole only exists because we've been taught to believe that something is missing. And when you start to see this truth, a question arises. If everything I desire has been placed in me, then what happens if I stop desiring it? The answer to this question isn't pretty. In fact, it's one of the most uncomfortable truths anyone can face. Because if you really accept that there's nothing ahead, that there's no prize waiting at the end of the race, then the whole structure of your life can start to crumble. And it's exactly this truth that nobody wants to see. But what if that truth is the only path to freedom? Imagine that one day you wake up and realize that everything around you, your name, your identity, your dreams, your fears, were never really yours. The world you thought was real is actually a big stage, but not a stage on which you are the protagonist. You're just a character in a play that began long before you were born. Ever since you were a child, you were told that life had a meaning, that there was something to be achieved, a path to follow. But now looking back, you realize that every decision you made was influenced by something external. Your concept of happiness, of success, of love, everything was programmed. And here's the brutal truth. What you believe to be your conscience may just be a conditioned reflection of the environment in which you grew up. This revelation is devastating. Many who have seen this truth have despaired. Friedrich Nietzsche himself, after spending his life deconstructing illusions, ended up plunging into madness. The Danish philosopher Søren Kierkegaard described this moment as the despair of freedom, when someone realizes that everything they thought was real may just be a sham. Krishnamurti said that the problem is not the illusion itself, but our refusal to accept that it exists. When the mind realizes that there is no fixed meaning, it panics. We look for answers. We look for something to fill the void. And that's when many people rush back into illusion. Because the truth is this: human beings prefer a comforting lie to an unbearable truth. All your life, you've believed that there was something waiting for you at the end of the road. A great reward, enlightenment, a point of arrival. But what if that point never existed? What if the road was always just a mental construct? Albert Camus called this the absurdity of existence. He said that man is like someone climbing an infinite mountain, believing that at the top he will find something special. But when he gets there, he realizes that there is nothing but emptiness. What then? Many people, when they realize this, go down 3 different paths. Despair, they sink into nihilism, believing that nothing is worthwhile. If everything is an illusion, why go on? Escape. They create a new lie for themselves. They immerse themselves in distractions, dogmas, new beliefs that only replace the old ones. The awakening. They accept reality as it is. without trying to cling to comforting explanations. They stop looking for meaning and start creating their own. Krishnamurti said that freedom only begins when we stop seeking security in ready-made answers, when we stop asking, "What is the meaning of life?" and start living without the need for an absolute answer. But the question is, are you ready for this freedom? Most people aren't. The human mind hates emptiness. That's why, even when it realizes that everything is an illusion, it tries to fill that void with new illusions. And this is how many people fall into the same cycle. They abandon one belief only to adopt another. They leave one prison and enter another without realizing it. That's why true liberation doesn't just lie in seeing the illusion. It lies in going through it without fear. Which brings us to the final question. If everything is an illusion, then how can we really live? This is exactly what we will explore in the final act. Is this content making you reflect and sparking new ways of thinking? If so, click the super thanks button just below the video. It's a way to say thank you and help me bring more content like this to those who need to reflect on life. From the start of this journey, we have dismantled every layer of the illusion that surrounds his life. We've seen how your identity has been shaped without you realizing it, how your desires have been programmed before you even had them, how the search for the meaning of life can be just another escape mechanism. But now we've reached the end point, the moment when all our certainties crumble and only one question remains. What now? If everything we believe to be real is just a well-rehearsed theater, if our ambitions, our fears, and even our identity are just reflections of deep conditioning, then how can we live without losing ourselves in despair? This is the moment when many collapse. Some try to escape into a new illusion, replacing one belief with another. Others reject everything, falling into nihilism and apathy. But there is a third option, to embrace emptiness without fear. Krishnamurti said that true awakening happens when we stop seeking security in ready-made explanations. The problem is not illusion. The problem is attachment to illusion. Human beings have been conditioned to seek meaning, to find comfort in narratives that explain the world. But what if true freedom lies precisely in abandoning this need? What if, instead of living in pursuit of an external purpose, we simply learned to live for the sake of living? Awakening doesn't happen when we find a new truth to believe in, but when we finally stop searching. Many who perceive illusion try to find refuge in something new. They run away from religion to cling to science. They flee society to isolate themselves. They flee material desire to cling to spiritual desire. But all this is just a new form of imprisonment. True awakening only happens when we stop running in circles and finally accept that there is nothing to be found, because there was never anything lost. But how do we live outside the illusion? The answer lies not in something that can be taught, but in something that needs to be lived. Krishnamurti didn't offer a ready-made path, because he knew that any method, any system, would already be a new form of conditioning. The only way to break free is to realize that there never were any real chains. The first step is to observe your mind without judging it. The human mind never stops. All the time we are thinking, interpreting, and reacting. But if you want to break free, you need to learn to observe your own thoughts without identifying with them. Think of a river. The water flows endlessly, but you don't have to dive into it. You can just observe it. Your thoughts are like that river. They appear and disappear, but you are not your thoughts. When you observe your own mind, you begin to realize something shocking. Most of your desires, fears, and beliefs are not really yours. They have been implanted in you throughout your life. The money you chase, the approval you desire, the security you seek, all of this has been programmed into you to keep you chasing something that will never satisfy you. And that's where the big revelation comes in. The only way to get out of this game is to stop playing. Society has taught you that happiness is always in something external, in the next goal, the next achievement, the next target. But happiness was never there. What if, instead of looking for meaning, you simply accepted that life doesn't need meaning? What if, instead of trying to fill the void, you accepted that it was never empty? Krishnamurti said that only in the total silence of the mind can the truth be perceived. Not an absolute truth, but a real experience of being alive, without filters, stories, or illusions. The emptiness we fear so much is not absence. It is fullness. It doesn't need to be filled with anything. It is already complete in itself. And when you finally accept this, something incredible happens. Fear disappears. the fear of failing, the fear of losing, the fear of not being good enough. All of this only existed because you believed you had to be something other than what you already are. But when you realize that there is nothing to be achieved because you are already here, now, then you finally start to live. Awakening is not a destination. It's a state of presence. You don't have to run away to the mountains, abandon everything, or follow a master to awaken. Awakening happens here and now, when you finally see reality as it is, without trying to fit it into comfortable explanations. Krishnamurti said that real freedom isn't choosing between predetermined options. It's realizing that the need to choose is an illusion. And this is where we come back to where it all began. Now that you've seen the illusion being dismantled, now that you've realized that your identity, your desires, your fears may just be a mind game, now comes the final question: do you have the courage to let go of it all? Most people don't want that answer. They want a solution, a new path, a new system to follow. But there's none of that here. There are no promises of eternal happiness, no paradise waiting. What there is reality without filters, without stories, without illusions. And maybe, just maybe, that's enough. Krishnamurti said that truth is a land without paths. No one can lead you to it. You have to discover it for yourself. Now, the decision is in your hands. Go back to the illusion or go through the portal of consciousness. The choice, as always, is yours. And here we end. But before we close, there's something that needs to be said. Most of the people who watch this video have already forgotten what was said. They will go back to their routines, to their cycles of desire and fear, to the endless race for meaning that will never be found. But there are a few who felt something different, who have sensed that there is something greater to be discovered. And if you're one of them, why stop now? If you've made it this far, you've already taken a step beyond most people. You're subscribed to the channel, you watch the videos, you reflect on every idea. Now the question is, how far do you want to take this? If you want to take the next step and truly apply this knowledge to your life, the White Rabbit Codes is ready for you. The link is in the pinned comment. Remember, success is a decision. The choice is yours. Count on me and follow the White Rabbit.